Welcome, everyone, and good evening, and welcome to Level Up. Thanks for joining. It's good to have you one more evening to join our show. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm your host, Everton, and along we have a special guest here today for you, no other than Andrea Carnegie, the principal of a middle school in Brampton. Just want to bring her on the show and to talk about school and some stuff that we can learn from her from a principal perspective. Again, welcome everyone to Level Up. Andrea, good to have you.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'm excited. I know that we go way back, and I'm really excited to be here and to share some things about my experiences as a principal and how can I help to inform parents and families and the community about what it is for schooling. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely good to have you as
Yeah.
well. Thanks for coming on. Before we start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? So you've been a principal for how many years?
So I have been a principal since I would say January 2022. So I'm in my fourth year, finishing off my fourth year as a principal with the Peel
Awesome.
Jersey School Board. Before that, a vice principal for 3 years. So I'm in my finishing off my seventh year as an administrator with the Peel Jersey School Board.
Wonderful. So you've been on the
Okay.
board for a while.
Yeah.
What prompted you to get into from that level to be a principal? Was there something that you saw that you could do have a bigger impact at this level? What prompted you to make that move to be a principal?
Yeah, certainly. So I have been with the board for like 23 years, almost 23 years. I started my career
Wow.
as a classroom teacher for the most part,
Yes.
teaching is in the middle school. And proceeded from that because I had an interest in the curriculum and to see students, learn and thrive. So, and I basically, after about, I would say 13, 14 years, as a classroom teacher, I ventured out and I served in a system role, a resource teacher supporting mathematics for the board. And but during my tenure, like being in a resource teacher role, I noticed that there was not enough support done for children, especially black boys.
Mm.
Black boys were really, really misunderstood.
Yeah.
And I was tired of going into schools supporting principals and supporting teachers and supporting curriculum, but tired of seeing black boys being sent out of the classrooms, being in hallways, not engaged in learning, being excluded. And I know that I wanted to do something on a bigger level,
Yeah.
on a greater level, and I wanted to be in a role that I had impact. And that's basically when I made decision to become an administrator.
It's funny because on that thought, I met you a couple years ago, and it was in relate to that you had a desire. But first of all, before I get to that point, you were placed into a school that was underachieving. And that goes back to based on where the school is located and the kids in that community. The school wasn't maximizing their full potential, and you came in and turned that school around. Could you say more about that?
Yeah. So thank you for that. Yes, I was placed in a school, and there was a history in particular about the school.
Yeah.
It's a school in Brampton, and predominantly a school with a high population of black students. And when I say high population of students in comparison to the board, the Peel District School Board has an average of 12% black student population. This particular school had approximately 20%. So if you think about, like in relationship to the board,
Yeah.
this particular school had a predominantly black student population, and especially black boys. And because of that, there were some perceptions around this particular school. And as a matter of fact, it was a school that was actually in the news and basically precipitated the Ministry of Education with, I would say, not only disagreements but dissatisfaction with the black community itself because of some statements that were made about this particular school. Because it's again because it's a high population of black students, but in particular black boys that are often criminalized in our system because of the perception about black men. And I was placed in the school, and when I was placed in the school, I was faced with students, and especially black students who were, did not feel like they belonged.
Yeah.
Understand that the perception, that was actually out there in the community about them, felt that what was actually written about the school was basically unfair to them, and so they did not have a sense of pride. They did not feel that they belonged. They did not have a sense of pride, and because of that, it was affecting their learning.
So could I also say that
yeah,
their level of expectations were probably at a low bar?
yes,
Because when I met you,
yeah,
one of the things that I recognized and that you were big on was raising the bar, allowing the kids to think higher so they can achieve higher.
yes,
And that story I can confirm because when my son was in grade 7 and we put him into a private school
yeah,
for grade 7, grade 8. And when he finished grade 8, when he left grade 8 and going to grade 9, he was so ahead because of the way he was taught in that system for 1 year. And when they asked him, why did you excel so much? He said to us, expectations were higher. And everyone had to level up to the same level.
yes,
It wasn't based on whether or not you were from the brown community or the black community or the white community. It was more that you are a student and we expect everyone to level up. So you're saying that when you got to that school, that wasn't the case. There's different levels for different kids based on where they're from.
yeah.
And you changed that.
Yes, we had to, and basically, and I call it reclaiming the narrative, right? And because the student basically had a perception about themselves as learners, but then maybe educators had another perception, maybe the community, and in this case, it was actually the community perception about the particular school because we had a predominantly black boys. You know, you'd be driving you know, on the street and you'll look across, you'll see many black boys in the schoolyard playing, you know, basketball. As a matter of fact, I taught at that school many years ago, and that was one of the reasons that drew me to the school, was the fact that there were so many black students at the school, and I wanted to support a school that I saw a lot of students that I believe share my lived experiences and that I could make an impact as a teacher. Because as a black woman, as a black educator, I have high expectation for all students.
Wow.
I did not grow up in Canada. I grew up in Jamaica, and I saw the potential, and I know the potential of young black boys in the school system. I see excellence. So I don't think, I've always said that taking an airplane and coming to Canada 3.5 hours away cannot really change the brain of young black men. Certainly not.
Come on.
Certainly not. So I wanted students, when they share their story with me, I wanted to help them reclaim that narrative.
Wow.
And so that's basically what I did at McCrimmon. I help students to find their voice, reclaim the narrative, change your story, change your perception, help them to see that we have to set high expectation. And I basically give an example. When I went to that school, when I went to the school, even though there was a perception out there for students and the fact that, here's a school with a whole bunch of black students, especially black boys, and we definitely know, you hear about this, school to prison pipeline. Well, we don't see excellence, right? When we look at black students, sometimes we don't see excellence. And sometimes students, they live it out. And I'm giving you an example. Students, I walked into the school before I started, and I see a lot of black students in the contact room. And basically, this is a room where students go to get support. And I'm not bashing a contact room. We have all type of teachers in the school that are there to support student,
So this is a room that your kids will go to
get support for their mental health and well-being.
Okay.
But in a lot of ways, it's in some schools, and in this particular school, it was a room that students go to when they're not engaged in the classroom. And basically, the tendency or the default was to send them to the contact room.
Wow.
And so I went to this room and I saw a lot of students. Keep in mind the perception that's out
and
there.
these kids have potential.
And they have potential. However, what was happening, we weren't seeing excellence. And I basically had to say, and I'm sure that you remember me coming to my school council meeting, and I had to say, like, what are you guys doing here? Black people don't send their children to school to play cards. No. That's what they do on the weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, these students need to be in class learning. And some of the things that the students share with me is the fact that they don't feel a sense of belonging. They didn't feel that sense of belonging. They only felt seen and heard when it was February, when it was Black History time. That was the only time that they felt seen and heard. And that they wanted a space to express themselves. And I basically grew up in the church, and I go to church. And when I go to church, I see young Black men basically doing the videoing.
Absolutely.
I'm doing the streaming.
They're active
active in church.
Yeah.
They're doing the streaming. They're basically doing the editing
They are.
of videos.
'Cause in my church, it's
Yeah.
all young youth who are doing that.
Yes.
I know you're saying that they're coming to school
And they're getting D's
narrative.
and they're getting D's and I's in literacy.
Interesting.
In literacy. So I challenged my educators and
Yeah.
I said, these young Black men are in church. They're creating content.
Yes.
It's literacy. Why are they coming to school? And why are they getting D's and I's? Help me understand, because I cannot see the connection.
So can we pause
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Because this is very deep what you're saying. So, and let's talk about that for a minute, because the average parents, they go to work and they're sending a kid off to school.
Yeah.
And they're expecting that the bar or the standard is raised for everyone and their kids getting the best education possible.
Yeah.
But you're saying that sometimes the experience that they get, it minimizes their level
Yeah.
and their potential level.
Yeah, yeah.
But what you did and how you see it from your perspective is that all kids should have the same level of expectations.
Yeah.
And the teachers
Yeah.
should not be the one to decide or limit the kid based on maybe a behavior that they don't understand.
Yeah.
Or trying to understand where that's coming from and find solution, rather than putting them into a bucket saying that because you're acting this way, then you're this person.
Yeah.
And they get fall into a category. So you came in, changed that narrative, and by doing so, what are some of the things that you implemented that changed the way they learned, and what are the results that came from that?
Yeah. So, because one of the things with Black students are highly capable, they're competent.
Okay.
They can learn curriculum at the highest rigor. And that's basically what I emphasize every day. And I say to my staff, and I even had a conversation with my staff at our last professional learning. When I see students walking in the hallway, and I see Black students walking in the hallway, and you're not challenging them and you're not providing engaging learning experiences for them, that's low expectation. That's what I said. Okay. So you're not creating the high expectation in your classroom to challenge students, to enable them to learn curriculum at the highest level. Yeah. And so a lot of times, and you basically alluded to the fact, when your son went to private school and what, they were allowed to level up.
Yes.
And so I challenged my teachers to say, okay, fine, how are you making curriculum authentic? How are you making curriculum interesting? How are you making curriculum, how are you making curriculum that interests students based on what they're doing in their everyday lives? And so basically that's what I did, because you're not understanding that literacy is also media. Because if you think that literacy is only reading, a book, then that's basically what you're providing. And you're not even asking the students what kind of books they like to read. But have you ever asked, okay, maybe I don't want to read a book for this particular assignment. Maybe I want to do an interview because I'm good at speaking.
Different learning
Yeah.
methods. Same results, but
Same
the way
results.
you go about it, because
Yes.
some kids may learn differently.
Exactly.
And we're trying to paint everyone the
Yes.
same brush.
Exactly.
To the same results.
Yeah, because the curriculum is a guide, but it's the learning experiences that you provide for students that basically engages them, that interests them. And what it showed me when I saw those young Black men in church doing literacy, because it's a production. That's what I say. It's a production for them to video, edit content, do the live stream. That's a lot of high-level thinking skills involved in that. And you're saying that these students are coming to classes and on their report card, they're getting I's and D's. So as a principal, I was just not expecting that. So you asked me what I did. I had a conversation with a student, and basically what they shared with me, that they felt their voices weren't being heard We weren't providing ways in which they can express themselves as learners. And that's just one of the things that I believe in as a principal, as an educator.
So these were students saying that they didn't have a voice.
They didn't have a voice. They weren't given the choices in terms of how they express themselves as a learner. And it's very important in the curriculum, because as I said, the curriculum is only a guide. What kind of learning experiences are you going to provide for students so that it motivates them, so that they understand the content, but it also have impact?
How do you, this is very deep. We can go on this all day. How do you navigate the different learning style of kids who may learn differently? You may have, I'm sure you had to do that at your school that you went, that they were underachieving, and find out maybe it's not the kids, maybe it's how they're taught or how the information was presented. How did you navigate that?
Yeah, so I basically will, teachers are trained that we have students that have diverse learning needs, but students also have like diverse learning, like styles. And we have to honor that. We have to honor that. We have to give students the opportunity to basically be innovative. Students are thinkers. I remembered when I was a classroom teacher, and I tell this story all the time. I basically had a conversation with my grade 8, because I was a grade 8 teacher for about 10 years. And I asked them, and I said to them, they told us that we need to learn about water. What do you think is important? This is what the curriculum says. Yeah. And I know we have the objectives and the learning criteria. What do you think that we need to know about water? And students start naming things to me, what they think that they need to know. But they shared, we'd love to learn about water, but we'd also love to put on a water fair, to basically share with our community what we learned about water. And that turned into a big project. Because it turned into, I wasn't a language teacher, but my students were writing to the Prime Minister. We got money, we got funding, basically, to do this water fair. And the students were making posters, and they were doing signs, and they were asking questions. And they were becoming critical learners, and they were becoming very knowledgeable about water.
These were the same kids that were considered to be underachieving.
Underachieving. And I remember,
all they needed was someone to shine a light and said, listen,
okay,
you have what it takes.
You have,
the gift is in you.
Yes.
How do we uncover it and let you be your best self?
I know. And they have a voice. And I wanted to show, and I always say, you have to be able to, engage students in a way, because they're critical thinkers. Yeah. And I remember that I had students, and it was actually some black students, that they had to research a water-related disease in a developing country. And I had students that went out and learned Swahili.
Wow.
And came back and did a newscast.
Wow.
And I say that to say this. Wow. As a teacher, I could never be that smart to put that in my long-range plan.
But the creativity.
But the creativity, the fact that I give them space.
Speaking of that, because when my son was in the school he was in, that's the key thing. Yeah. Creativity. The school allowed them to be creative.
Yes, yes.
And you can be amazed what the kids can do if they're allowed to be creative and not being handcuffed to a system that they can fit in. Yeah. And if you can't fit in the system, then you're not smart. Yes. Or you don't have what it takes. Yes. Right? For time's sake, can you give us, some parents are out there listening. Yes. I went to the school, and you did an amazing job. And when I met you, I was so inspired by you, because as teachers, principals, I believe that you guys have a big role in terms of dealing with the kids. Like, they're leaving homes, and they're coming to you or to your school, and their future has been molded in the school system, and what they're told they're going to become, and how they're perceived. And the key thing that you said earlier that I love, you said you had to change the narrative of how they were perceived and how they perceive themselves, right? Any tips you can give to parents out there who may be struggling with that, and not necessarily in your school, but in other school, they're going through the same thing where they know the kids can do more, but for some reason they're perceived a certain way. And as parents, how do we help the kids? How do we help them to overcome and be the best of themselves?
Yeah. So I think it's very important that parents do like meet and have conversation with their children in terms of what happening in the school. And I am a principal that love when parents drop in,
Really?
to meet me. I love it.
Okay.
Drop into the school, basically have a conversation with the teacher, have a conversation, especially with the principal. Have a conversation basically with the principal about how your child is doing. Ask questions. Very, very important to really ask questions. And also encourage your child, especially, and I know that I'm speaking a lot about black, children, and the reason why I'm speaking a lot about black children is because in our system, and I don't necessarily know about other schools board, but I definitely know in our school board, our black students are underachieving.
And that's the Peel board.
Yes, yes. Our black students are underachieving. They're not achieving to their fullest potential. Number one, it's because of the perception that is actually out there. Number two, I would say it's because of the expectation. And so it's very, very important that we understand that our children are competent, and I say it all the time. They're competent, they're capable, they're curious, they're intelligent, and they have the ability to achieve and be successful like any other groups of students, okay? And so it's very important that we encourage our students. I know a lot of times, we know we love sports and love to see our children in sports, but we also need to encourage them, okay, you're doing sports, but I want you also to be very good at math. I definitely know you, as a father, you're very much, interested in how your children do in school, not only in terms of athletic and extracurricular, but also very much in terms of their academics. Very, very important. So yes, they're in sports, but you also want to encourage them in STEM. Ensure that they see themselves in places that they would not see themselves, because it's a perception game. So it's very, very important that we have high expectation, that parents have high expectation, but also encourage your children to basically try programs that they would never, ever see themselves. So
you said STEM program. So the STEM program, my son and my daughter went through the program as well. Can you talk a little bit more about the STEM program to parents who don't understand what that is, and maybe some other support programs that they can tap into that they're not aware of in the school system?
Yeah, so I definitely know that our board has a department just for STEM. It's Empowering Modern Learning. Right now they changed their names, our students, when I say our students, I'm talking black students in particular, do not always, and when I say STEM, I'm talking about science, technology, engineering, and math. We have a lot of, I would say, regional learning choice programs that are in high schools. And our students, black students, don't always see themselves. We don't, even though the board has a system where black students, can apply, a lot of students are not taking opportunities of these.
Why is that? Is that because they're not aware of the program? Or
they don't see themselves.
Okay.
They're not seeing themselves represented in these programs. So this is basically why, for example, I have an opportunity, and of course I'm a principal in a middle school, to work in partnership with a professor at the University of Masters to basically come into the school and do some, STEM learning experiences with some of our students, because I want students to see themselves, and my school is predominant. It's a very diverse school. It's actually 27% black student population, even much more bigger than my former school. And so I want all students, but in particular black students, to see themselves, in the areas of science and technology.
Which is the future.
Which is the future. So for example, I'm giving you an example. At my former school, you'll see a set of population of students in the robotics program. And these would be extracurricular activities that are offered at the grade 7, 8 level. And
this is during school or after school?
I would say after school. So these are experiences that are offered after school, like the robotics program. And you will see a huge population of ethnic group of students in the robotics program. But when it comes on, so for example, the black students, they're lacking. Yes.
How do we, and that's important because you said that earlier when you said they don't see themselves in these particular fields. And this is the conversation we need to have, is that we need to start having them seeing themselves in
Yes.
any particular
In any
area.
particular field, yes.
And I think it comes from exposure. I think from the younger grade coming up, if you're not exposed to certain things, or if you weren't challenged to level up to certain things, as you get from grade 6 to grade 7 to grade 8 to grade 9, you keep the same expectation that, well, in grade 7, they didn't expect me to do much, so grade 8 is the same thing.
Yeah.
So you're trying to change that narrative where we're expecting you
Yeah.
to level up despite your community.
Exactly. So this is
Despite where you're from.
Yeah, so this is why at McCrimmon, and you probably saw our CLC, that's
Yes.
one of my proudest, I would say, moment as a principal, where we created the Creative Learning Center, and with a state-of-art podcast and music
Yes,
studio
yes,
for
it's a great-
students.
yes.
We also had an engineering, like, fabrication lab.
In middle school?
At our middle school, yes. Yeah, at our middle school. And it was not a school that basically offered one of those regional learning choice programs, because I do, in middle school, I do have my own bias. When I say bias, I really believe that. Because sometimes with these learning choice programs, you have students that come from far, and they basically get spaces in the schools. And the students that live in the community don't have access, right? So at McCrimmon, when I was at this school, I ensured that we had a state-of-art podcast studio. We had an engineering and fabrication lab with all the latest technology in the school for all students. So when I left the school, we had Black Girls at Code. Basically, I was pleased that a lot of them, they basically entered a competition, and they were on CBC sometime, I think, this year in the spring.
And this is the same school.
And this is same school.
That was underachieving.
Yes,
and
that was
just-
underachieving, yes.
Honestly,
Yeah.
honestly, I can have this conversation with
Yeah.
you all day, because this is so important. We're talking about the future of our youth, and we see what's going on in the community. We see the crime, and we see what's going on with our young youth. And it doesn't start when they're 18. This starts from when they're in grade 7, going to grade 8, going to grade 9. And we have to keep them engaged. We have to have them level up. But to do so, the narrative has to change how they see themselves, and also how they're perceived in the school system. And that can take effect by how teachers like yourself challenge these young men and boys and girls to level up.
Yes.
In closing, again, guys, thanks for joining in. Again, welcome to Level Up. I'm here with Andrea Carnegie, principal in the Brampton School Board, and she have given some great nuggets here tonight and how we can be better, learn some stuff as parents, things that we can tap into the school board, and ways to support our kids. In 5 seconds, Andrea, any last words you want to share?
I just wanted to say to parents, our kids are capable, they're competent. Do encourage them to basically achieve at their highest level. Okay?
Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
God bless you all. See you next time, and level up. Thank you so
Okay.
much.